Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Now, this is going to be something a bit different compared to my normal discussion-based videos. This is just going to be an overview about the recent blog that was released, and I just want to go over it with you guys as well as my thoughts on the matter. So, I am a bit late to this. I'm sure that people have already made videos about this, but nevertheless, I do want to cover it and kind of give my thoughts on the matter. So, this is a blog from YouTube, and it's titled An Update to Our Harassment Party. So we're already off to a good start because we know how YouTube is when it comes to harassment. This blog was published on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, and it reads, "Over the last several years, we have worked to improve the way we manage content on YouTube by quickly removing it when it violates our community guidelines." Now, to just stop right there and just talk about that, this is obvious BS, because there has been plenty of times where content has legit gone against community guidelines, and the video remains up. It's untouched, unedited a lot of times, and even if it has tons of dislikes and a bunch of flags, there have been plenty of times where that content has remained up, and it's just peachy. So there's a bit of bias when it comes to like the removal of community guidelines. Now, let's just continue on. Reducing the spread of borderline content, raising up authoritative voices when it comes to people when people are looking for breaking news and information, and rewarding trusted creators and artists that make YouTube a special place. Today we are announcing a series of policy and product changes that update how we tackle harassment on YouTube. We systematically review all our policies to make sure the line between what we remove and what we allow is drawn in the right place, and recognized earlier this year that for harassment there is more we can do to protect our creators and communities. Now, I kind of want to just give YouTube the benefit of the doubt here and say that they are right in the sense that there is a lot more that they can do in regards of like how they handle harassment and whatnot. But I'm going to suggest a few things by the end of reading this and whatnot, that I feel would be a lot better than what's being presented right now. Now, it says, harassment hurts our community by making people less inclined to share their opinions and engage with each other, which it does. We heard this time and again from creators, including those who've met with us during the development of this policy update. We also met with a number of experts who shared their perspective and informed our process, from organizations that study online bullying and advocate on behalf of journalists to free speech proponents and policy organizations from all sides of the political spectrum. Now, I kind of want to just stop right here when it comes to politics, and I feel like politics is like a really big issue when it comes to YouTube. I'm not saying that you should not be allowed to express your political opinion, but there's obvious bias when it comes to like political opinions, because some people feel like the day and age that we are in now, like certain opinions and whatnot are just supposed to be accepted, while others are supposed to be just, oh, that's from a different age, so that's not even supposed to be considered. And this is one of the biggest things when it comes to YouTube, because if one political spectrum gets to say, oh, we're in, you're old, then that's essentially censorship of, a political spectrum and whatnot, right? And now, I don't follow politics, but I at least agree with the idea that, hey, if you have something to say and you do want to share your opinion, you should be able to and whatnot. But the way that it is right now, it's mainly like there's certain things that everyone is supposed to just feel is okay based on the day and age that we are in, and if not, then you're a bigot or a misogynist or whatever they want to call you these days, right? Now, it says, we remain committed to our openness as a platform and to ensure that spirited debate and vigorous exchange of ideas continue to thrive here. However, we will not tolerate harassment, and we believe the steps outlined below will contribute to our mission by making YouTube a better place for everyone to share their story or opinion. The stronger stance against threats and personal attacks. We've always removed videos that explicitly threaten someone, reveal confidential personal information, or encourage people to harass someone else. Moving forward, our policies will go on a step further and not only prohibit explicit threats, but also veiled or implied threats. This includes content simulating violence towards an individual or language suggesting physical violence may occur. No individual should be subject to harassment that suggests violence. Beyond threatening someone, there is also demeaning language that goes too far. To establish a consistent criteria for what type of content is not allowed for YouTube, we're building upon the framework we use for our hate speech policies. Stop right there. Stop right there. Now, hate speech is one thing I really have an issue with. And I don't mean that like in a way that people are probably like, oh, so you're for hate speech? And I'm like, not really. The issue with hate speech is that it's insanely subjective. Like, what is and what isn't hate speech? Now, I'm not going to try and define it because there's no reason to, because it's so subjective. But when we look at something like the N-word, right, that a lot of people throw around, if you are an African American, right, then that word gets to get thrown around 24/7. But if someone else says that word, then it's considered hate speech. But wouldn't it be better to just ban that word regardless? It doesn't matter if you're African American or if you're someone else. If you use that word, should it not be banned? You know what I mean? And then there's also the fact that some people will say, oh, you disagree with the fact that I'm a feminist, or you disagree with the fact that I'm a pro-male rights kind of guy, so a lot of times they'll say hate speech. So is that really hate speech, that you disagree with the fact that someone's a feminist or a male rights guy or something? It's so subjective that the fact that they're making an entire update to a policy based on hate speech, which is subjective in nature, really just doesn't seem like a wise decision, and it seems like it's going to affect a lot of people in a negative way. Now, continuing on, we will no longer allow content that maliciously insults someone based on protected attributes such as their race, gender expression, or sexual orientation. This applies to everyone from private individuals to YouTube creators to public officials. Consequences for a pattern of harassing behavior. Something we've heard from our creators is that harassment sometimes takes the shape of a pattern of repeated behavior across multiple platforms, across multiple videos or comments, even if any individual video doesn't cross a policy line. To address this, we're tightening our policies for the YouTube Partner Program to get even tougher on those who engage in harassing behavior, and to ensure we reward only trusted creators. Channels that repeatedly brush up against our harassment policy will be suspended from the YouTube Partner Program, eliminating their ability to make money on YouTube. We also remove content from channels if they repeatedly harass someone. If this behavior continues, we'll take more severe actions, including issuing strikes or terminating a channel altogether. Now, to really summarize that once again, it's the fact that, so how is this hate speech thing gonna work? You know what I mean? Like, I can't, say something about someone that they may not agree with about themselves. Like, for example, like, people may think that I'm using hate speech in this regard right now, but a lot of people think that there are only two genders, and a lot of people say that there's a lot more than two genders and whatnot. And if a biology if a biology professor, says that there's only two genders, and he uses, biology and physiology, is that hate speech? I mean, he's trying to convey his perspective using, science and reasoning. So what, does that count as hate speech? Because that's not, something that a lot of people these days will accept because it goes against their idea and whatnot. So my question is, the subjectiveness of that in general, like, is that considered hate speech, and why should that be considered hate speech, Because you should be allowed to, like, defend whatever you feel like is okay, because that same person who can be like, well, I feel like there's a lot more than, two genders, is going to always be able to 9 times out of 10 defend their position. But if someone who disagrees with that statement, it seems like they'll come under fire from this policy, and they won't be able to defend their opinion, frankly. Now, this is the really good section, and I really have an idea on how this should have been done compared to what this is going to be done. What is going to be done, excuse me. Addressing toxic comments. Oh boy, this is going to be good. We know that the comment section is an important place for fans to engage with creators and with each other. At the same time, we heard feedback that comments are often where creators and viewers encounter harassment. This behavior not only impacts the person targeted by the harassment, but can also have a chilling effect on the entire conversation. To combat this, we remove comments that clearly violate our policies. Over 16 million in the third quarter of this year, specifically due to harassment. The policy updates we've outlined above will also apply to comments. So we expect this number to increase in future quarters. Beyond comments that we remove, we also empower creators to further shape the conversation on their channels with a variety of tools that will help. Hopefully they actually do help. When we are not sure if a comment violates our policies or not, but it seems potentially inappropriate. We give creators the option to review it before it's posted on their channel. Resulting among early adopters, we are promised channels that enable a feature saw 75% reduction in user flags or comments. Earlier this year, we began to turn this setting on by default for most creators. We've continued to fine-tune our system to make sure that we catch truly toxic comments, not just anything that's negative or critical, and feedback from creators has been positive. Last week, we began turning on this feature on by default for YouTube's largest channels, with the site's most active comment sections will roll out to most channels by the end of the year. To be clear, creators can opt out, and if they choose to leave the feature enabled, they will still have ultimate control over which held comments can appear on their videos. Alternatively, creators can also ignore held comments altogether if they prefer. All of these updates represent another step towards making sure we protect the YouTube community. We expect there will continue to be healthy debates over some of the decisions, and we have appeals in the process if creators believe we made the wrong call on a video. As we make these changes, it's vitally important that YouTube remain a place where people can express a broad range of ideas, and will continue to protect discussion on the matters of public interest and artistic expression. We also believe these discussions can be had in ways that invite participation and never make someone fear for their safety. We're committed to continue revisiting our policies regularly to ensure that we are preserving the magic of YouTube while also living up to community expectations of our community. Oh, excuse me, I said that twice. While living up to the expectations of our community. Matt Halprin, Vice President of Global Head of Trust and Safety. Now, let's just get down to the meat and potatoes of this when it comes down to the comment section, people. The comments on YouTube are less than stellar, to be frank, okay? I've seen death threats, attacks based on people. I've even seen some people go as too far as to actually, get a hold of someone's personal information somehow. I don't really know how. And they would actually, leak and dox your information in the comments. So I've seen a crap fest when it comes down to, the comments on YouTube and whatnot, right? But, the way that I feel like this is done, just mass deleting comments or just holding them up to the point where it's like your comment won't even really be shown. They'll just be held for review. And due to the fact that YouTube is such a big place, and when, certain people, get to the channel size, say 100,000, that just becomes far too much to manage at sometimes, they still obviously do their best to manage it, but, it'll just become too much. So many comments could just end up in held for review. And it didn't even necessarily have to be something crazy. It could have just been something that YouTube just doesn't feel is suitable because, let's face it, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be automated. Now, I do understand the fact that they want to combat the toxicity of comments because that has been a really big issue. I've seen entire threads go on for, months at a time, just going back with some internet troll trying to get attention and whatnot. But the way I feel that this was handled could have really been better, and a simple solution would have been this. Give all users of YouTube the ability to block comments to the degree that they don't see them. Just hide. Well, it's not block. It's called hiding them. as a content creator, when I see comments, there is an ability that I have to hide user from channel, or hide user. Well, yeah, it's just hide user from channel. What I feel like we should have is all users of YouTube who are signed in should have the ability to click on a user's name and just hide their comment. Like, you don't see it or anything. Like, they're just not there and whatnot. Now, some will say, oh, but that would suppress free speech and whatnot. But in regards to just outright deleting it, like, it wouldn't technically be it wouldn't be deleted. It would just be, if you don't want to see it, then you don't have to. You know what I mean? And that would really seem like it would help in regards to the bullying and whatnot, because someone wouldn't have to come to a video time and time again where someone's just, spamming them and whatnot, and spamming hate mails. You could simply just hide that user, and their comments are invisible to them. If you're a creator, when you say hide that user from the channel, then no one sees them. But if you're a user, you can just be hide this user from videos, in regards to all videos. As in, if, say, Sam XX420 Blazeit guy is saying you're a like a racial slur or something repeatedly at your comments, and you go to another video and he's there attacking someone else, if you like click on his name, right, like on like the extra options buttons, if there should be like a hide user type of thing to where you don't have to ever see his comments again. And that way you don't have to, but if someone does choose to respond and entertain him, they can. You know what I mean? Instead of just mass blocking or just mass holding comments for review, because then that feels like they don't really get their immediate criticism or opinion out there immediately. They just have to wait for you to come back and review it. And since channels will get really big over a lot of time, that's likely going to not happen as much, meaning most people just won't really see their comments and no one will have them responded to. So overall, I really feel like this could have been done better in regards to the entire harassment policy. But I feel like I get where YouTube's coming from when they're trying to change this for the better, but certain things like hate speech and whatnot are just so subjective that I don't really feel like that should ever be something that is a part of, a policy. Hate speech, like, it's subjective. Like, I could have insulted his hairline, and that could be considered hate speech these days because of how subjective it is. So, I personally feel like hate speech and the way that the comments are done, as well as, like, the removal of content when it comes against community guidelines, it's so subjective that, to me personally, it should never be incorporated in community policies. It's too subjective, and it'll affect people in a negative way. And some people just outright get special treatment, and that's how their content gets to stay up when it's clearly against community guidelines. So, I mean, if you don't believe me, look at like those usual like music videos where it's like, oh, YouTube isn't a place for nudity, and it's like, the women in those videos like have a line over their breasts, and it's like just a line in between their buttocks, and you can see darn near everything. So that's usually not age restricted or anything, so I'm just saying there's obviously a bit of what is it called? Bias. I said this is going to bring my video on this to a close. I know it was a bit different as I don't really cover blogs and whatnot, but maybe I should start covering these a bit more, because just overlooking these and discussing these really feels like it can do a bit of people good, as it's coming from a content creator's point of view, and I'm a smaller content creator, so I might be able to relate to a bit of people a bit better compared to like some really big guy who's probably going to get a bit of bias now that he has a bit of a reputation to himself. So usually like bigger channels can get away with things compared to smaller channels, so maybe it'll be good for me to go over these a bit more. As always, rate the video what you think it deserves. Tell me what you'd like to see in the future in the comments below. Feel free to check out my Amino. It will be linked in the comments. Also, check out my BitChute. It will be linked under the description of my videos. I will be uploading more serious content to BitChute to stay on the safe side of YouTube because I don't want to risk anything. So if you are interested, you will find it in the description, and I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.